bum 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 bum. Bum ba 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 ba. Ba 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 bum ba 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 bum ba 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 bum 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 ba. Star Wars, this is a Star Wars, this is a Star Wars, this is Star Wars.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, singers of all ages, welcome to Fireside Live. May the 4th be with you. Tonight's special guest is IUP alum Dr. Samantha Wood with musical guest, the Jedi Jubilee Glee Club. And now, here's your host, straight from a cookout on Endor, Dr. B, your teacher.
Thank you. So glad to see you tonight. May the 4th be with you. We have a very special show. We have a Star Wars celebration. As you saw, to start off our show, we had the Jedi Jubilee Glee Club. They're a wonderful new group. They just formed the other night, and they will be joining us later to provide some more musical entertainment. That is after our special guest, Dr. Sam Wood. She's an IUP alum. She is out there. She's teaching. She's a pedagogue. She's a performer, and she's going to tell us more about what she's doing. But first, speaking of Jedi, have you heard of this? Luke Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi? You know, they took a break from all their Jedi training, and they sat down for a meal at the local Chinese restaurant. Luke was struggling with those chopsticks, like, you know, who doesn't? But Obi-Wan, ever the teacher, leaned over and said, "Use the forks, Luke." Now, that reminds me, what do you get when you cross a bounty hunter with tropical fruit? Mango fett. Right? But listen, speaking of food, have you tried these gluten-free Wookiee treats? You know, they're a little chewy. Chewy. Right? That's the Wookiee, Chewbacca. Chewy, it's his nickname. Right? I hear it's funnier if you explain it. Anyways, this guy, Darth Vader, he's got the helmet and all that jazz. Say, he walked into that vegetarian restaurant and he said, "I find your lack of steak disturbing." But at least they had toast for him. He likes his toast. He likes his toast on the dark side. Well, very glad to be here on a very, very special Star Wars day with our very special guest, Samantha Wood. Sam, are you there?
I am here.
May the 4th be with you.
And the good Lutheran in me says, and also with you.
That's what you're supposed to say. You were raised right, young Padawan. All right. Although you're not a Padawan anymore, you are a master. So, well, let's talk about that. We're so glad to see you tonight. We're so happy that you took your time to join us. I think we're all going to learn a lot about the career path that you've chosen and the road you took to get there.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome. So why don't you tell us where you're from?
I am from Pottsville, Pennsylvania. And when I explain that to people outside of Pennsylvania, I say it's somewhere north of Philly and somewhere south of New York City.
Okay. I didn't know that. I did not know that. All right.
We are most known for our beer. Yingling is brewed in Pottsville, Pennsylvania.
Amazing. Now that is some worthwhile knowledge. So that's two great things that have come out of Pottsville. Sam Wood and Yingling. All right. So we got a quick plug. Maybe they'll send me some beer. All right.
Yeah.
Anyways, I doubt it. We'll see if they're welcome. All right. So you got your DMA. That's the Doctor of Musical Arts for those of you keeping score at home. What's up with that?
What's up with getting it?
Yeah, what's up with that?
Why did I get it?
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Well, I started at IUP, and you, of course, came into my life my sophomore year. Mm-hmm. And you said, hey, you're a music ed major. You want to teach choir? And I said, I don't think I do want to teach choir. I said, that's a problem.
Right, that is a problem. That is a problem.
And we talked for a while about what it is I wanted to do, and I frankly I didn't even know it was a possibility to do what you did. I don't know what I thought I had to do what you did, but I certainly didn't think I was going to do it. But ultimately that's what I wanted to do, and you kind of showed me that path and what that might look like for someone like me. Of course, that path is going to look differently for many different people. And so absolutely, right? I mean, the DMA, of course, is a path that you do, you take if you want to teach, and you take if you want to teach individuals how to sing. And that was absolutely that's all I really knew about what I wanted when I left IUP.
That's great. So can you tell us then about your journey? So you started at IUP, so we got that. Then what happened next?
What happened? I feel like in a lot of ways I was like a guinea pig for IUP.
Okay, I can dig.
In that
Somebody's got to do it.
Yeah, exactly. And so at the time that I was there wasn't too many people doing summer programs, so I didn't even know that was a possibility. And so you had encouraged me to do some summer program auditions, and I did. And I ended up doing the Bel Canto Institute, which was held in Florence, Italy. We'd have like Italian coaches and teachers, language teachers, but then they were American voice teachers and voice coaches. And one of those teachers I studied with, Penelope Beatsa, she teaches over at Boston University. She heard my voice and she said, "Oh, I know where you need to go." And I said, "I don't know what that means, but I'll take your opinion."
Somebody knows it.
I have a dramatic voice, and that's not just a comment on my personality.
Not dramatic at all. Very calm.
So at the time I really didn't know what that meant, but she knew what that meant and you knew what that meant, and it meant for me that I needed to go study with someone who was going to give me the time and space to grow. My voice was was quite large for a young singer, and I didn't know what we did as much as we could with it. And then she said, there's this teacher at this small school north of Detroit, little like Pottsville, maybe you didn't hear of it, Oakland University. And she said, there's a fantastic teacher there. You should go study with her. And so I went and I took a lesson thinking I'm not going to go to this school, but I got to listen to the teacher and see what turns out. And after my lesson with her, I was like, I'm sold. This is where I have to be. And she just understood my whole journey, why I was singing Puccini at 21 and not singing Mozart like my colleagues.
Right.
So there it was kind of nice. I went to a small school so that I could kind of just hide and build and really delve into my technique. And after that, I was ready for a bigger program. And there actually is not a larger program than the University of North Texas, it turns out. And that's where I wanted to go for my DMA. I actually have been, since I've been going through the process of applying to university positions, I've been asked this question a lot about why I would choose to work at this university, or why do I think it'd be good for students to go to these universities, and especially given the path that I had taken, which is I went to 2 medium-sized schools and then a very large school. And for me, it was a lot about personality. It was a lot about, I'm a state school kind of girl. I don't think I would have gotten into a conservatory as an undergrad. I'm actually pretty certain I wouldn't have. And so I really, I think undergrad, you go to the campus, you check it out, you see if it fits for you. For me, it just felt like college. If you've ever walked around IUP, it just feels like college.
Right.
So I chose that. Then my master's, it was for the teacher. I was like, I just need to get somewhere where I can get a teacher. and it was nice that they had money as well, that they could help pay for that journey. And then my doctorate was about what can this school do for me after I leave, because your doctorate is going to set you up for all your teaching to come or all your scholarly work to come. And so I needed a school that was going to put me on the right path.
Sure. Well, I think that's really wonderful that while not all of us go on the same journey or do things in the same order, I think your reasoning for doing those things are right on. I mean, maybe talk about the importance of going to Oakland University at the time in your development, because that's not going to be on no disrespect to that school, but it's not going to be on that, everybody's top 10 list.
Yeah, absolutely. All my colleagues they went off to their master's programs, and they were like really gung-ho for going on the young artist track and doing that sort of thing. And so of course, when you're looking for a program like that, you might be looking for someone who can just kind of, polish you and put their rubber stamp on you and send you on their way, as one of their products. Frankly, I really wasn't the product that a lot of those schools were looking for, because of the size of my voice and just where I was. Larger voices just take longer to develop. And so I had intonation issues, and I had, it was a bit wobbly, to say the least. There was certainly, for the right ears, I think you knew where I was headed. You certainly did, and Edie at Oakland certainly did, and actually all the faculty there knew, and so it was very clear why I would be heading to somewhere where, they have they have a larger program than IUP does, but they have a smaller program as far as the opera program they were building at the time. Now they're still building on that program, but I got to do roles like we did Suor Angelica, and I played just one of the nuns. I didn't go for Suor. I didn't even try. It was just I'll just sing in the chorus, and I'll do these sort of things until I feel like I'm comfortable enough, because it really felt like when I was rebuilding my technique, it felt like I was in my underwear a lot. Vocally, and even Edie, she warned me when I started. She said, you're not going to be able to do opera workshop right away. You're not going to be performing as much. Your first year, I'm going to really rein you in. And as you know, I'm not a person who likes to sit still for very long.
Oh no, yeah, that's hard. You want to be out there.
Exactly, and it felt like the complete opposite of what I was doing. I'm grateful that whatever foresight I had at the time to know, I really need to listen to this teacher, and I really need to just do what she says, because she knows where to go with this path, and I really didn't. So I'm very grateful for her. That's
really amazing. That reminds me of another sort of leader in the universe, and that is Darth Vader, who is, I think, was a member of the Jedi Jubilee Glee Club. And if you don't mind, we pause in our interview and hear another offering from that wonderful new group.
Absolutely. Sing away.
Sing away. All right, here we go.
May the fourth be with you. May the fourth be with you.
Join me!
They're amazing.
They are amazing. So
they
expressive.
Look familiar, but I can't put my finger on it.
Yeah, well, we might learn their identities later.
Oh, okay.
But back to the task at hand. So you, after getting yourself really solidified with a teacher who's, I would say, an expert in your voice, which
Absolutely.
is really important for a master's degree, you went on to get a doctorate, and you have to do research for that. They just don't give them away. You got to do something. So what was your what was your research about?
You mean my research for my dissertation or my
Yes.
research for, okay, yeah. So my research for my dissertation was about long distance study in voice study.
Wow. Wow. Oh, geez. We're never going to use that.
You know what? To be fair, most people who I told about my project were like, I wouldn't want to teach like that.
No, you got to whether you likes it or not.
And I mean, honestly, I came upon it through the help of one of my professors at UNT. He's a big vocal ped history guy, Dr. Stephen Austin. He's a big reason why I ended up
Okay.
going to North Texas. I wanted a good pedagogy program with an internationally renowned pedagogue. And they offer like 3 courses in pedagogy specifically, and then there's other things that you could take like speech and language pathology or musicians health, things that are related to that, so which is unusual for a lot of schools, because a lot of schools just kind of do a pedagogy course and maybe a practicum course, but this had pedagogy and science, vocal acoustics, music,
Wow.
pedagogy history, that sort of thing. And so it was in my history class that I kind of came upon the family tree that I come from in my studies. And I really didn't understand why I didn't go to UNT and study with actually this pedagogy teacher. I took his classes, but he was not my primary teacher.
Sure.
I couldn't understand why everything he said sounded so familiar. It sounded like I was walking into another lesson with Edie. It was like,
Wow. That's
this is
wonderful.
right. And I thought this is odd. And then my private lessons teacher there as well, Dr. Stephen Morshak, he also sounded like he was coming from an Edie lesson, and I could not figure out what was going on here. And I decided I would kind of search their family trees. Well, it turned out that Dr. Austin's big influence is Manuel Garcia, and Dr. Morshak and Edie's big influences are Margaret Harshaw, who is a direct descendant
Yeah, absolutely.
of Manuel Garcia.
Absolutely. So for those who aren't aware, Manuel Garcia was a pioneer in vocal
He's-
technique.
Yes, the grandfather of vocal science, and fun fact, the guy who invented that tiny mirror that your dentist uses.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. That's right. The tiny mirror, your dentist.
The
That's what they
laryngeus.
call it. No,
That's what they
the
call it.
tiny mirror. Okay, fine. We'll use it. The tiny mirror. That's right.
So they came from this similar lineage, and I also came across the name Hermann Klein, who was a famous music critic and a voice teacher, and he happened to have a phonovocal method, which I did not know what that meant, and I could not find for the life of me a copy of it.
Okay.
And so I came to my teacher and we were talking about it, and he excitedly shows me this old, dirty, half-chewed box that had what all I could see was there was an unbound book in there and all of these letters. And the letters were coming from Lancaster, Pennsylvania, which of course I was like, oh, I know where that is.
Yeah, close to home.
And this person was reading about singing from this unbound book and was taking tests on it and sending it to a teacher in Chicago. And I was like, this is interesting. And of course, like he's just such a good teacher. He's like one of those people that just gives you that and says, enjoy, doesn't give me any direction. Just says,
Absolutely.
see what you think, come back to me with what you think and see if this is something that you would be interested in looking into further. And so I did. I learned about correspondence schools of music. What were those written schools? They evolved into the phonograph lesson. The teacher would record themselves and demonstrate for the student. They would pay that subscription just like we pay for Netflix or Hulu now. Or Masterclass now, they have all these, classes online.
Absolutely.
and then eventually the phonograph, you can make a recordable phonograph and record yourself and send it to your teacher for feedback. And I still do that. Like, I send you a video, or I send Edie or Dr. Morshak a video, and I say, what do you think? You know, what's going on? So we're still learning in this way, and now I'm teaching in this way. And then I just kind of traced that, you know, traced 3 major schools that taught that way, and then took it into the 21st century and said, what have we learned from this, and what can we continue to learn from this, or what can we, you know, what can we take into our studios from this information?
That's amazing. So it was because there's, you know, on YouTube, there's countless people. You pay, you know, $10 and get a couple of lessons. So it's nothing new. It's nothing new. So there are, when we talk about online lessons, and I think a lot of us have gained respect for this type of teaching. I was sort of always on the middle of like, well, I see how you can get some things done. There's some things obviously that are harder, but was it similarly viewed back in the day? It was like, you can't learn on a record, you know, you can't learn by writing letters, you know.
You know what? I'm sure there were people that were like that. I really am. But these correspondence schools, I mean, they started back in the early in 1900. You know, these,
really? Wow. The
first correspondence school of any type was founded in, I believe, 1873. And that was for women who, it was education for women who could not get a liberal education, right? So
sure.
They weren't going into higher ed. And so it was education courses written by women for women, which was really cool.
Oh, wow.
And then it kind of trickled down to many things. And so people who, you know, live in a rural area and can't move to a city to learn something like singing, it really was useful for them. And we see that now, you know, if you want to recruit outside of Western Pennsylvania and you guys get a snowstorm and now you can't.
Oh, absolutely.
You know? You can't take your recruiting trip and go there, or other countries. You know, you all have used that overseas, right? With some of the students from different Asian countries, right?
Sure.
So I mean, it really could be used in many different ways. In the time that they were out there, these correspondence schools, there were even universities like Northwestern University who said, if you pass the classes for harmony and theory and you pass your entrance exams for Northwestern, we'll give you 2 years worth of theory credit. So it was like the first AP music course.
Why not? That's great. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That is really amazing. Yeah, I mean, just this, I mean, we have used it a ton, and you yourself, of course, have as well during this time. And I mean, we've conducted auditions. I mean, you know, the students have sent us their selections and we review them and get back to them, but it's almost faster because we can get back to them right away.
Mm-hmm.
And and they can sort of make sure it's a good take and be comfortable. And you know, we missed that personal connection, but I think we must have done a dozen auditions.
Well, and this is that you have the opportunity to learn that while you're at school. You know, if that's the only way that you can send in the audition, you know, in this certainly in this climate, then you give them that opportunity when they come and study with you. But that's a skill in and of itself, to record yourself and say, what's good enough? Do I do 37 takes or do I do 5 takes? You know,
right. I think we all struggle with that, but that's hard to do. You know, sometimes you just have to go, you know what, I'm going to do 2 takes today and that's it.
See what catches.
See what's it. That's it. That's it. What advice would you offer a student who wanted to take a similar path to yours, or maybe end up at the destination that you have?
My advice.
Dun, dun, dun.
My advice is to look inward. It's easy to look at you know, to your right and your left and see what everybody else is up to, and to compare yourself to their progress and to their journey. But I couldn't do that. First of all, like I said, I was like a guinea pig at IUP. I was one of the first people going off that I knew of that was going off for a master's program. So I didn't even have anybody else to be looking at. But you know, I had to look at what I needed at the time. And that's what I looked at when I went for my undergrad. That's why I picked IUP. I needed the things that I saw in IUP. And so for each step after that, I had to look inward and say, what do I need next? Thankfully, I also had you, and I had all these other teachers who were very good at being honest with me and telling me, I think this is what you need next, and I think this is what you need next. And it wasn't just you who gave me the go ahead to go study with a dramatic soprano. Dr. Hastings, of course, also really encouraged that. She was wonderful to work with in opera workshop because she would give me roles like Donna Elvira. I'm still studying Mozart, but I don't have to hang out up on top with Donna Anna, right?
Absolutely not.
I wouldn't hang with those girls very well then.
Right.
So look at what you need and ask those that you trust. And that, that might be your colleagues, but I think it's going to be the people who are helping you get through the degree, and ask them, what do you think it is that I need next? And go and do your research. You have to research the schools, talk to people, email them, check out what they have on YouTube, and see if you can talk to a current student, that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's wonderful advice. And I think there are some people watching right now who are going to hopefully listen to that advice. All right. So, sorry, that's my close-up. I just rocked forward. All right. So we've come to the part in our program where we are getting ready for the question section. So, but before we do that, we have one more offering from the Jedi Jubilee Glee Club. And this one is very special because they asked me to sing with them. And I was very happily, now there's no soloists in the Jedi Jubilee Glee Club. Everyone sings together. And I think you'll see, we rehearsed hard. And I think that's evident in this selection called Let the Wookiee Win.
Let the Wookiee win. Let the Wookiee win. Let the Wookiee win. Let the Wookiee win. Pull your arms off.
There we go. And that's how it's done. Let the Wookiee win. I was so happy that they were with us as musical guests. And before we do this, I'm going to quickly plug next week's show, because normally our musical guest is our special guest next week. Well, our special guest next week couldn't be here for a musical because it's more than one person. For the first time in 2 months, we are going to have together here by the Electric Hearth the IUP Voice Faculty Reunion Show. We've not seen each other for 2 months. I don't know. Has Dr. Lowe grown a COVID beard? We're going to find that out. We're going to find out lots of questions from them. So you got to tune in next week for that. So back to Dr. Wood here. I want to thank you so much for being here. And it's time for your questions. So I'm going to get up Facebook, the Facebook live feed, and I'm going to see if we can get some questions going. And those of you who are listening, you know the deal. Please feel free to come on and give your questions. I know we had a question a couple weeks ago, and it's a very good one, but it can be a tough one, it can be a lengthy one, and that was, how do you practice? Dun, dun, dun. That's a tough one.
I think that's a fantastic question, and I think it's a question that I try to tackle in my own teaching all the time, because I don't find, it's not been my experience that students don't practice because they don't want to practice. I think students don't practice because they don't know how to practice, or they don't know what's expected of them. So I would be it's always a goal of mine as a teacher to make sure that my students not only understand the goals of the exercise we're working on, or whether it's the vocalies we're working on, or whether it's the piece of music that we're working on, So not only do they have some technical goals, but they have tangible ways to know if they're achieving those goals. And so something I gained from you was that I knew if I felt this, then I must be doing this, and so that's going to be different for every exercise and for every singer.
Right.
But it's certainly, maybe I can answer it from the voice teacher's point of view, which is I try my best to make sure that my students understand how to practice something. And so I think one thing I encourage with my students is keeping a notebook. Whether you keep it in with all your other music and you have, sheets of paper that you put with your music, you write down the exercises. For me, I just jot down scale degrees and put down, whatever vowels we used. And then I write down the goals and I'll say to them, okay, now write down this, and this. No more than 3 goals for every exercise, because that's insane. They won't remember 3 anyway.
Yes. Exactly.
I won't remember 3.
No way. One thing at a time.
And I keep the same thing for my students. I have, even for my online students, I have all of the vowels we used and what worked, and I try to use the language that works with them, because it doesn't help for me to keep regurgitating words that don't make any sense to them. If they have their own language to say it in, let's say it in that. And so that's my goal as a teacher anyway.
Awesome. And we've got a question from Facebook here. This comes from perhaps a classmate of yours, Jonathan Walker Van Kuren. Shout out there. Yes, what is your teaching philosophy? Jonathan, that's a big question, my friend.
Ooh, you know what? You get asked this a lot, and John probably just went through.
He sure did.
Asked this quite a bit. He is going to be a voice professor at LVC, which is awesome.
That's great. Congratulations, John.
Yeah, you won't find a harder worker than John. Mm-hmm. You won't. And John and I used to have such a good time. We would go into the music library and laugh way louder than we were supposed to and get yelled at for it.
Absolutely.
But we would go in and nerd out about PED all the time. So it's a very appropriate question from him. I think if I can boil it down, my teaching philosophy is process over product.
Yes.
Hard to get students to commit to the process because oftentimes the process is really ugly, and doesn't have all the pretty sounds, and maybe you're not singing the repertoire you wish you were singing. Yeah. But if you focus on the product, I want to sound like this, or I want to sound like her, or I want to do this, you rarely get there. You need to focus on the process. How did I get here in the first place? Not, I want to make that sound again, but what did I think of to get there? Because that's vocal technique.
Yes, absolutely.
Hoping and wishing for a product is not vocal technique.
Mindset is so important to singing, and so important to the teaching of singing. Having your mind in the right place, not beating yourself up. I really like the goals thing. Some of my current students might recognize some of that. And it's really important. And I think it's really important for the teacher to be malleable. You got to be ready for what's coming at you.
Oh yeah, and meet people where they are. You can't have expectations for what you think where the student should be, because where the student is what matters. That's certainly a goal or it's certainly a lesson you learn the more you teach.
Sure, absolutely. So our next question comes from young Brooke Johnson. Brooke is a freshman at IUP. She asks, how does one get started in teaching private voice? So do you mean, Brooke, and perhaps you can add on to this, do you mean just like in the community, or perhaps we take it from that aspect? I think the first thing you would do is take vocal pedagogy, would you say?
I would say that my first voice student came from my vocal pedagogy class.
There you go. There you go.
And I'm still good friends with her. Her name is Jessica Brigham. And she was my vocal guinea pig.
Yes. Right.
I think that it was a safe environment to start teaching. We started to learn about the different parts of the instrument. I will say that when I was studying voice before I took vocal ped, I felt like voice was a lot of things. Like I was chasing a lot of symptoms Like I had a lot of tensions that I was, okay, I got to make sure my tongue's not tense and make sure my shoulders are relaxing. I distinctly remember a lesson where you put a piece of tape on my forehead because I always sang very concerned about what I was singing.
Absolutely. Yes.
And I felt like I was chasing all these tensions. And it's a little like when you walk into a voice lesson as the teacher, it's like a patient is almost coming to you. They have symptoms and they may be
Right.
aware of them or they may not be aware of them. And it's your job to get down to the source issue. If a student has a headache every day, you can give them a bunch of ibuprofen, but it's not going to really fix what's happening. And I think
Right.
Penn taught me that. That lifted the veil on that.
That's wonderful. That's really great. Tyler Haslett had a question. And let's see, where did it go? I think he was asking about making connections while you're looking for jobs.
Oh,
Was that right, Tyler? We'll just go for that. That's I think it starts with our manner, how we treat people. Kindness. You got to be nice to everybody. I mean, we were just talking about this the other day. You can't be a jerk. You got to be kind. You got to be respectful, and yeah.
Yeah, my fiance will tell his students all the time, or his colleagues. They'll ask him like, because he's a DMA student. You often find yourself in that position as a DMA student, being like the Papa Bear. And they'll say, "How do you get all these gigs and stuff like that?" And he says, "Well, I show up on time, I do my work, and I'm a nice guy. I think, you know."
There you go. There you go.
It starts now though. It doesn't like it's not a button you click on after you graduate and you're like, now I'm a good colleague. No, you should be a good colleague now.
Yes, absolutely. Practice that now. I think I don't know if it was your class or if you had gone yet. And I think we sat all the students down and said, we did one of those, look to your left, look to your right. Somebody's going to be a principal. Somebody's going to be hiring, and you got to be nice to people. You just have to be a good person. I think you're absolutely right. Work hard, know your music, practice, be on time, and be a good dude or dudette,
Yeah.
whatever.
Just be nice, yeah. And support, find ways to uplift one another. It is so easy to sit in departmental and to sit in studio class and to sit in voice area or anything and pick somebody's singing apart. And there's something to be said for sitting there and asking yourself, okay, I see this issue. How would I fix it as a teacher? I'm always in that, I'm always in that mindset.
Right.
But it is so much harder to sit there and say, hey, remember the last time they sang? This is like so much better than that, or this is what I noticed. And if you go up to your colleague and say that to them, whether you like them as a person or not, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah,
but if you could honestly say to them, wow, I heard last time you were working on your passaggio, it sounds so much more open now than the last time I heard it. Not only are you going to be a better colleague, but you are going to teach yourself how to be a better teacher and how to be a better singer.
Absolutely.
Start now.
That's right. Observation without judgment is it's a skill, and some of us it takes a while to catch on to that. We have a question from he was our inaugural guest here on the Fireside Chat. He's the singing samurai, Dr. Dan Ewert. He's on Zoom, so you can come on and ask your question there.
Hey! I heard you singing on Facebook. I don't know, it was last week. I think it was the orchestra. It was fantastic.
Yes, Dr. Wood was our musical guest last week.
So my question is right up your alley. What do you do, or how do you work around the audio filtering from online lessons? My biggest concern as a teacher is what I'm hearing the student, or is it my computer?
This is a wonderful question. And this is the I think this is the number one reason why people don't try online lessons. Of course, now we're being forced to it, but I think this was a big reason why, because the voice is such a complex sound, and when you're singing well, it's even more complex. And so I think if you're looking to do teaching or learning long distance for the long term, I think investing in a good microphone, and I'm not saying drop $500 on a microphone, you could, but I'm saying maybe spend maybe $60, which is probably what I'd pay in about 2 months time to drive back and forth to my teacher, and invest in a decent microphone. I use this, I don't know if I can do product placement. But I use.
What you got to do? We got no advertisers.
This is the one that I use. It's called the Blue. I think it's like a snowball ice. If I get very close, it sounds like I'm on a radio show. But I have used this for both lessons and for auditions. And for the auditions, when I'm actually singing, I have to put it quite far away. So I keep the camera close, and it's on a USB, so it has a pretty long cord. And it picks up sound around very well. I think that's the problem with a lot of microphones, is they just want like very, I don't know what you say, like the laser point kind of sound. And we have like this sound as opera singers. And so but on the other end of it, when I'm listening to my students sing and they don't have access to an external mic or any mic of any real value besides their computer or their phone, those normal things that I hear in a voice when I say, okay, now can we do that again and make more space or something like that, and all of a sudden the sound kind of goes out. I take that as a good sign that now you've made a more complex sound than you once did before, because the microphone was picking up the sound. So I've learned that, at least with my long distance patching that we're doing right now, because these are all students I would normally meet in person, I use that as a guide for me. Is if it's too much sound or it's too complex a sound, it won't be picked up by the microphone.
Very nice. And just a quick shout out to the Singing Samurai. His isolation beard is quite fluffy. Great. So we've got, yes, very nice. Very nice. I'm admiring. I just trimmed, so I'm sorry. All right. Anyways, we have a Christian Holman. Why don't you go on, Christian? He's no stranger to our show.
Hello, Dr. Wood.
Hello.
I have this question. So when you're working on an opera, what do you like? You're working with other people and stage and makeup, all that stuff. What do you find the most challenging sometimes, and how do you adjust to it?
Like, what do I find the most challenging about working with other people, or what do I find the most challenging about?
Both.
Both? Oh my goodness. Yeah, I suppose something that's challenging is each director you work with is going to want something different from you, and not just each director you work with, but through the progress of a show, you have many different directors, right? You have your voice teacher who's going to help you get ready for that audition, right? And they want something out of you. And hopefully they want something really good out of you. And I know your voice teacher, so I know he does. Number two is that you're going to move on and get maybe a musical director, right? Or a vocal coach. And then you have the staging director. And they'll all want something different. Your staging director now wants you to be facing, laying on the floor with your head this way and all. And your voice teacher said, well, you have to have good posture when you sing, so you have a lot of different personalities to kind of contend with. And I think everybody in the end wants a good product. And so I think what we need to focus on is, you have to have your own compass. You have to know what feels right and what doesn't feel right, and speak up for yourself if it doesn't feel right. But you have to always keep in mind what's the end goal. Who am I serving at this very moment? And what we do in opera is not a self-serving art. It is going to serve our communities, and it's all about the story that we're conveying, or this little piece of human spirit that the audience has come to see displayed on the stage. And I think ultimately we want to be a good vessel through which art travels and we want to be a good vessel for our audience so that we can share that genius that's not us. It's the art, it's the music, it's the text, it's the art that's around you, the staging and the costumes and everything. And so having that inner compass helps you when you're interacting with different personalities that might kind of push you to your limits of what you think should be happening or what is happening.
I think that's very well said. Very well said. We have 2 shout outs. We have some love coming from Pottsville. Debbie Sheehan. Did I say that correctly?
Yes, you did.
She says, watching from Pottsville, watch Sam grow up into an amazing adult and singer. So we've got lots of love coming there. And another bit of love for your microphone. We have from Kyle Chestulik. He's a current IUP student. There's some love for the snowball. He has one of those blue snowballs as well.
You know what I'll say about wonderful Debbie is that she did watch me grow up, and I make it a point that when I go home, I always sing with she watched me grow up in the church, actually, and I sang in the church choir, and I sang solos, and eventually when I got old enough, I could sing a duet with Debbie, and she's a wonderful singer. She really, really is.
Hey.
And a fife player, I believe.
Oh, wow.
In like a drum and bugle corps. And so I always, and when I come back to Indiana, I go and I sing at Calvary. I think it's just so important to continue to give back to the people who gave to you. I'm a product of my raising in many, many different ways. And I'm the person I am because I worked in churches and worked with church choirs throughout all of my schooling and into my professional life. And I wouldn't trade that education for anything.
That's awesome. So here's an interesting question. With the voice that you have, and as you said, it takes, and we agree, it takes time for a voice such as yours to just sort of cook, and you got to get to know how to drive that car. Is there something you wish you would have known during your time as an undergraduate? I think perhaps there's some students out there wondering, there's something you wish you would have known. I mean, it's hindsight being 2020,
right.
But you've given a lot of great advice. Is this stuff that you have always thought or had to learn, or?
Oh, no, shop the world, steal from the best, right? Like I say, I'm a product of my raising. I certainly have learned all this along the way. But I think if I could look back to my IUP self, I might encourage her to be a bit more patient and perhaps even rein it in a little bit as far as many opportunities. I sang a lot of things, right? So come my senior recital, we did a wonderful opera production. We actually did 2 wonderful opera productions that year.
Yeah.
So we did The Old Maid and the Thief in the fall, which was so much fun. And I got to play the gossiping neighbor, which, of course, typecasting. No, I'm just kidding.
You were brilliant.
I was a screaming Harridan. I just remember coming in and yelling, Miss Todd! And then we would go to... I also helped out one of my colleagues, Cameron Ashbaugh, who he put on an opera in his senior year for his senior recital. So in that year alone, I was doing 2 roles, plus I was doing everything in opera workshop. I was in 2 choirs. I was at least 2 choirs. It might have been, I don't know. I did Dio, which, love and Dio. I was auditioning for summer programs and for graduate school. And so come my senior recital, I was like really wiped, and we put together a hodgepodge recital, which is what we had to do. And like you said, hindsight being 2020, I don't think I could have done all of those things and put on a better recital. I was very happy with what I could do. And I was happy that for the leniency of the voice faculty to allow me to I did a duet and a quartet, which was really fun. Actually, we did this,
Oh, it wasn't Jay Keggy. Who was it? Oh, another American composer. I can't remember. It'll come to me. But we did these really wonderful pieces, and so I wish I would have reined it in a little bit, because it's just a lot. And so and I think my voice teacher may have been saying rein it in, and I think I thought I can do it all. And you only know your limits when you reach them, and I certainly reined it in. I ended up actually taking like a semester off of Delta Omicron, because I knew that was a big chunk of time that I needed to practice, and I had responsibilities outside of just the meetings and things like that. So I mean, I did rein it in some, but I certainly learned that lesson over and over again throughout my life.
Sure. And those are things that, we have to find out ourselves. You have to find out how far you can push it. But they say, nothing ventured, nothing gained. So you don't find out if you don't go for it.
Ricky Ian Gordon. Sorry.
Yeah, John is reminding us on Facebook. It was Ricky Ian Gordon.
Oh, it was Ricky Ian Gordon.
He says, "Joy, no, it was New Moon." Does that sound familiar? I don't recall.
Yes, yes.
That was a long time ago, Samantha.
Done a lot of recitals since then.
Yes, you have. So anyway, so that's. But I think perhaps that's the theme tonight: is nothing ventured, nothing gained. You got to go for it, and we sure are proud here at IUP of all you've accomplished, and I'm personally very proud as your teacher, and you are a wonderful example to our students and the students to come.
Thank you.
But thank you. But I think we've come to the end of our time here. We really appreciate Dr. Wood, you coming on and telling us about your journey and sharing all this wonderful pedagogy and advice. And it's so helpful.
Thank you. Thank you. This was so much fun. I know I've had a good time coming back to IUP in the few times that we've come back and done concerts together and got to teach the students. I mean, I only wish I was there longer, that I could do more of that while I was there, but I had such a good time, and this was just an extension of that. Absolutely. I was sad I couldn't come this spring, and now I'm here.
Great. Well, we have to keep it going. And
yes.
At some point, we'll get a round table of you alumni here, and we'll bounce more ideas and let students ask questions. And as you guys continue to be leaders and examples for us.
Absolutely.
Well, before we go, the Jedi Jubilee Singers, the Glee Club, excuse me, I said the title wrong. I hope I don't get sued. The Jedi Jubilee Glee Club will sing us out on this beautiful May the 4th. And if you haven't done something Star Wars, there's still time. But as I always say, hold on, I got to get ready. I'm probably going to be editing some of this stuff. As I always say, this is what the edits are for. But as I always say, hang on, this is serious, Sam. I'm sorry. This is the serious part. Okay. So as always, and this is the Bill Clinton thumb. As always, take care of yourself and each other. Jedi Jubilee Singers.
Star Wars.
No, really.
Okay,
Blackout,
Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next week.